Framing 101. I'm Camilla, and this is Sam Buie,
Hello.
a professional framer with over 20 years experience. He's an expert custom framer, and he's also the retail framing director for Jerry's Artarama. So far today we've talked about different frames that we have, how to choose the best frame for the artwork that you need, and Sam also showed us how to frame this canvas so easily in one of our gallery wood frames. All of the materials and the supplies that we're using you can find in a Jerry's Artarama near you. And if you have any questions, we've got a ton of experts behind our framing counter like Sam would be happy to help walk you through your project. And just so you know, framing consultations with Jerry's are always free. So now that we've got a little bit of an idea about the frame itself, would you like to tell us some about glass choices?
Absolutely. Okay, so we got this nice example here. I'm sorry I don't have the bad examples of what the wrong types of glass can do to your art, but basically it's regular glass, and regular glass has no UV protection, and that is the biggest enemy to the face of the art other than dirt. UV rays come from ambient lighting, so even the overhead lighting in the store, sunlight especially, they all have UV rays. All art that's paper has dormant acids in it, unless it's 100% rag, which is a lot of money to have your substrate be 100% rag, but they do have acids in them, and they are dormant. UV rays activate them, so they can cause your art to fade. Newspaper in sunlight turns yellow. That's just an extreme example of how quickly it can happen. But the types of glass we're showing here, two of them are my favorite types. Conservation clear, which is right here. Museum glass, which is the middle one. Now the third one is conservation reflection control. Now I'm not a big fan of that glass. Some people like it because it's the old non-glare style, but you can see it's kind of hazy. And for that non-glare glass, that reflection control to be perfectly clear, it has to be against the art, and you never want your glass touching the art. I've seen many pieces over the years where they come in, the old art has been on the glass, I take the glass off, and image transferences happen. You can see the image on the glass. Sometimes if it's oil especially and it hadn't cured long enough, it'll pull the paint off. And there's been pieces that I've had in that were 50 years old that I told the client, unfortunately, we've got to leave that old glass on there. We cannot clean it from the side against the art because it's stuck to it. We can clean the face, but if you take it off, it's going to tear your art. It's going to bring the image up. So you never want art against the glass. That's why I'm not a big fan of the conservation reflection control, because it's only really clear if it's touching it. You can see how it's kind of hazy a little bit. It gains clarity when it's directly against your art, which you don't want. The best glass is the museum glass. And Katie, I don't know if you see any reflection or anything in that, but it looks like there's nothing there. And that's especially good if I've seen it several times. Walk into a house, they have a couch, big painting behind the couch with glass on it, lamps on the end tables on the corner, and I walk in and all I see is these lamps reflecting off of the glass, and it obscures your art. It's there. It is there. That's the kind of glass birds fly into. They can see it. But the conservation clear and the museum,
not good for windows, good for art.
These two glasses right here, and in this one as well, they're all 99% UV protection. There's no such thing as 100% UV, but 99 is as close as you can get in the glass industry. They provide the same protection. All three of these do, but these are the two I'm focusing on. They will protect your art from fading from the UV rays, as long as it's framed properly and not against the art. Conservation clear looks like regular glass, but it is 99% UV protection. And framers can tell the difference between that and regular glass. This glass, when you look at it up close, has these little ridges. And what they do is they reflect all the UV rays and bounce them away. Museum glass, that's some technology, I don't know how they do it. But it's the same. I know that I could have gotten this type of glass when I got my eyeglasses, but the lenses were several hundred more just to have this type of anti-glare glass than it is for just regular glass. So you got to take that into consideration. It is expensive, but I think it's worth it, especially if you're hanging art and there's a lot of light coming in around it. You won't have the problem of walking in and seeing like a window reflection in your art or a lamp or something like that. So those are the basics of the main glasses, and all your frame shops, all Jerry's sell all three of these, and there's a few more. There's museum acrylic, there's optimum museum acrylic, and I don't even want to tell y'all how much that stuff is, because it's a mortgage payment basically to have that type of glass. But that's for big pieces. I always recommend anything over 30 by 40. I would recommend using acrylic because it's lightweight. It's not heavy. We do have frames like the gallery woods that are 24-36. They can support real glass, but it is really heavy. And if you're hanging it on a wall where you're just putting your hooks in the sheetrock, it could tear those hooks out real easy. So that's why I recommend going with acrylic when you get to a bigger size. And then we have regular conservation clear acrylic, which is the same thing as the real glazing. And then we have optimum museum acrylic, which probably a piece this big of optimum museum acrylic retail probably run $200, just to give you an idea how much that glazing could be for a big piece. It can get really expensive. And they're doing a lot of things in a lot of the art galleries now and museums. They're taking some of the masters' work. Oil paintings in the past never had any glazing on them. Well, they have to clean them constantly. So, and you know, you're going to have that one random person that decides to touch a painting in a museum or something like that. So now what they're doing is they're adding a linen liner and then putting glazing over them. So now they're all getting glazed. They're all using that optimum museum acrylic. So the good big museums can afford that. But those are three types of glass that we discussed. And now I want to show y'all. These are okay, yeah. These are this is glass we sell on the floor. So this could be worked with the open back frames that I showed y'all a little while ago down this aisle, or even the plein air frames, or any open back frames for that matter. It is regular glass. It is cardboard backing. So I would not recommend this for anything that has any intrinsic value to you guys, because it's going to fade over time. This will probably cause acid burns over time. I usually recommend this for something that like menu boards or something you're going to change out constantly, or maybe kids art that you're going to have on the wall for about 5 or 6 years, and once the kid grows up, you're going to get rid of it. So nothing that you want to really preserve for the long haul. And this is we touched on this briefly a little while ago. This is the polystyrene that comes in our gallery wood frames. It is perfectly good to use as a protectant. It's all it's going to do is protect dust and dirt and moisture somewhat. But it doesn't have any UV protection. And it looks real hazy, that's because it's got a peel off on the two sides. Let's see if I can get it started. They really put it on there pretty well.
Your fingernails.
But this glass is a nice way the prepackaged glass is a nice way to upgrade your gallery frames if you were to purchase these, and it just comes with the acrylic. If you want to step your project up a little bit, but you're not quite looking to fully invest into museum quality glass, this is a really good mid-grade option for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Over time, you can choose to invest more into if you want to.
Yeah, and people like licenses that you have to have on your wall and things. This is good for that. You know, nothing you don't care if that's going to fade over time, or kids art that's not going to be around for that long, you know, or anything that you just want to put menu boards and things. It's just not going to protect.
Even if you want to do it temporarily until you can save and get it.
Until
you can get a custom piece or a custom frame.
Yeah, and I've seen people that wait for one of our big sales and just like buy this first, and then we have a big sale, and they come back and get the good stuff later. So basically, that's that. That's a glass and backpack, and we have it for, I think, 18 by 24 is the biggest, I believe, that we sell. This is a package. Anything bigger than that, our shop certainly can cut glass of any of the types that you want. We can cut custom cuts for you. We do it all the time. This is a clip frame. And these are kind of neat because all it is a particle board backing with these little spring clips that come around the face of the glass. Basically, it's a frameless frame. So you put your art in there, it'll hang on the wall just like that. It doesn't have any edges or anything. I wouldn't recommend using it for any expensive art pieces or anything like that. And you just put a nail in there in the wall and hang it on one of these little guys. So they're okay. They're good for projects and things like that. And I've used them in the past myself with a little montage and all that. But anything that I've ever done with this type of glass, I always switch out and use a museum glass or a nice glass if it has light. It is touching your art. So that is something that I would consider with these. Not anywhere close to being art type.
That'd be better for like photographs and stuff like that.
I would never put photographs in there because over time that glass is going to stick to the photograph. There's no way to keep this glass off of the art because it's just a frameless frame. So, and it doesn't have UV protection. Now I can show you how to keep glass off of the art. The acrylic we sell off of the floor, not the polystyrene that comes in the gallery wood frame. So it's a little bit thicker, but it's still just acrylic. And so it's not going to protect your art. I'm not going to peel the plastic off of this, but you guys saw how I did it for the polystyrene. It's generally pretty clear when you peel it off. If acrylic gets scratched, you can see scratches. I don't know if that's on the plastic or on the acrylic itself, but it scratches really easy. So just keep that in mind. I would never use acrylic for something this small. I'd use real glass. Only when you get bigger to use acrylic, but we sell it. And a lot of people use it as a palette, so they'll put their paint on this and that sort of thing. And so there's a use for it other than just framing glazing. So just keep that in mind. And we're going to show you all how to do this now to protect your nice pastel that we got. Now this was fixed, and by fixed I mean they sprayed a fixative on it, which locks in the pastel. Now a cheap fixative will dull it, so you want to use a really nice fixative, and fixatives also have UV protection, so that's another way that you can spray it with a fixative and it'll provide UV protection. And what it does is it locks in the charcoal so it doesn't come off. It still comes off a little bit, or the pastel, but if I had this and hadn't fixed it, I could go like that and the dust would be all over the deck right here. So keep that in mind. And normally on a pastel, I don't fix them. I will float them and have a mat float around it, and I'll build a trough at the bottom so that when it's on the wall, if any dust falls, it's a reverse tape trough. So it'll fall down and hit the sticky side of the tape underneath the mat so that those little dust particles don't get on the face of your mat. That's the episode I actually did for our Facebook Live a while back, and those are all accessible on our main Jerry's website and on Facebook as well. So we're going to show you guys how I'm going to do this. So we're going to use our gallery wood frame here again. Is this the 9x12? Yeah. And first goes in your glass. So we got our glazing in there. And these, and I mentioned them briefly, are acrylic spacers. All they are is solid little plastic strips. This little part right here is a peel-off adhesive. You want that to go, they're made 1/4 inch wide, so they are flush with the width of the rabbet, which is that little lip, and they stick on the side of the frame. So I'm gonna go through and put these in, and I actually pinwheeled them, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that again. Yeah, I can do it. All right, so that one's in. And by pinwheeling, I just mentioned to Camilla, there's a longer one in this guy. No, that's too long. I gotta figure it out. Pinwheeling is basically having them go like that, and you'll see when I get done. That's not this one. This one.
Is it this one?
I think it's this one. And I pre-cut these this morning, and so now I got to remember which order I did them in. That's, there we go. By pinwheeling them, you can get them to where they hide pretty well. All right. Let me get that one adhered. So I got it there like that. And then I got one more. Thank you, Camille. And I just cut these kind of quick, so there might be some gaps in there. You really want to have them flush. If you see how there's a little gap right there, you really want them flush to each other. And by pinwheeling them, you can see how I left the space so that they sink into each other. But those are spacers. And what they do is they provide a buffer between your pastel, or any artwork for that matter, and your glass, so it's not sticking to it. So this guy just drops in, and it sets on those spacers. I turn it around, you can see how it has a little depth now. So it actually looks pretty good. I mean, it gives it a little bit of aesthetic. If I had peeled off the plastic, it looked really nice. But that's how that works. And then as far as finishing it, this is acid-free backing foam core. We sell that on the floor, and they can custom cut it to size in the frame shops. That just goes on there like that. And then our backing, which is right here. And I already did wiring once. Well, this is just to show you guys how easy. And we sell the spacers in the frame shop. It's not an item on the floor, but you can go to any of your Jerry's, go back to the frame counter, and I think a strip of them that's 48 inches is 4 feet basically is like $6. So that's good to do it. That'll be plenty to do this size right here. But that's it. It keeps the glass off of there. Still protected. If that was museum glass, you would think there was nothing there, and but you never want your glass touching the art, and that's how easy these gallery wood frames. All I would need to do on this one is run the wire across like I did on the other one, and it's all ready to go.
All right.
Does
Thank
the
you, Sam.
The glass spaces come in the different colors? That was kind of dark color.
We have clear ones, but the problem with that is that most of the frames, not this one per se, because the inside's finished white, but most of them is raw wood, and if they're clear, you might be able to see the raw wood. That's why we like to use black, but you can always color them. And spacers, there's all different types. Hollow spacers, I don't really like those because when you cut them, it crimps them, and it's really hard to get. You have to stick a screwdriver in there to flare it back out because it pinches in, and they really don't look right. These black acrylic ones are solid, and you really don't notice them. I mean, you can see them. If this was clear, you would probably see it a little bit, but it doesn't do anything to distract from your art once it's hanging on the wall. So they're really good. They're easy to cut. You have to use wire cutters. When you cut them, I would recommend aiming it down towards a trash can, because as soon as you snip it, like a little section like that, if I popped it, it would fly 30 feet away. I mean, it could hurt somebody. So, and we used to have little spacer wars back in the frame shop. That's all kinds of fun things we did in the frame shop. But basically, that's our talk about glass and how the spacers work and keep it off of your art. And
Got a question over
You
here.
do the same thing with like a watercolor on paper, if you put it in that same way with spacers.
Sam, can you repeat the question so they can hear it?
yeah, he's asking if I would do the same thing with watercolors. Yes, I would. Any paper art, and the reason why I did the spacers, the only time you have to do spacers is if your art is the same size of your frame. So this is for stuff that you don't want to mat out. You don't want to put a mat on it. If it doesn't have a mat, mats keep the art off of the glass, so that's another way in lieu of spacers. But like if you come in with an 8x10 piece, you buy 8x10 frame, you're going to need spacers because your art will be sitting right against the glass. Unless it's an oil canvas and you let it set.
All right, yeah, thank you, Sam.
Yeah.
So, like we mentioned earlier, this is one of a series. We've got 6 other episodes, so make sure you check out our one prior to this one, where you actually do show us how to do a little bit with hanging hardware. And next, we're talking about everything mats, mat selection, how to cut mats, and I appreciate your time. And make sure you stop in your local Jerry's. Everything that we use today, we do have in store, and our custom framers are there and ready to answer any questions you may have. So, thank you. We'll see you on the next episode.
Yep.